A river that gives life to millions has also become an issue of dispute between two states. These are Chhattisgarh and Odisha. Today we are going to discuss about the Mahanadi River Dispute, where 8 barrages were constructed by Chhattisgarh, which is an upstream state, which was objected by Odisha. And interestingly, no water sharing agreement exists between both of the states. It is in this context the tribunal was created, which is still ran, which just has ran out of the patience and has decided to give the award if both states not come to some amicable solution as such. So, what is the entire history or the region behind a dispute over this river water? How important is this river for both of the state? Let us try to understand this in more detail. Now, first of all, if you look at the main reason behind this dispute, it is because of the 8 plus upstream barrages. Barrages we can consider as a kind of small dam whose reservoir level is relatively lower. It was built without any information, message or agreement with the state of Odisha, which can be considered as the lower riparian state. 14 to 15 districts of Odisha are dependent upon the Mahanadi River, especially the Hirakud Dam project built long ago somewhere in 1950s, and that's why Odisha has objected to this particular barrage construction. As recent as 2nd May 2026, the tribunal that is referred as Mahanadi Water Dispute Tribunal, it has given a final warning and deadline to both of the state that you have to come up with some sort of solution. If not, then tribunal would be forced to provide the award which will be binding to both of the states. Now, the Odisha says that its most water-dependent districts are being slowly starved. Why they are slowly starved? Because we have seen Chhattisgarh is the upper riparian state. That means if Chhattisgarh start developing barrages, dams and other projects on the river, the amount of water flowing across the Odisha state through Mahanadi River would definitely reduce. So it claims that Chhattisgarh holds water back upstream, that is the reason behind its grievance as such. River is critical for both of the state. It is likely referred as lifeline of Chhattisgarh and Odisha. And the reason is simple, because the water from the river is not only utilized for any one purpose, it is utilized for multiple purposes. For example, water from river Mahanadi is important for industrial activity in both of states. It also is critical for supplying drinking water to millions of people in different districts of these states. And also, many areas are where hydroelectricity is generated. So, for industrial purposes, hydroelectricity generation as well as for drinking water purposes, the river is very, very important. That is the reason behind the dispute. The core question that arises here is that how much water must an upstream state let flow downstream without any shared agreement? Because when we talked about this dispute, Chhattisgarh always claims that it is using its fair share of water that flow through its state in the river Mahanadi as such. Now, before understanding this dispute, let's try to understand the overall Mahanadi River system itself. So, as you can see from this particular map, Mahanadi River originates from the region that is called as Sihawa. Sihawa is in the Dhamtari district in the Chhattisgarh, central part of India, and then it flows in the northward direction, then it takes eastward turn, again then it takes a southward turn, then eastward turn, and flows for almost 860 km roughly to measure the delta region and the source region as such. So that is the important, we can say, in the course of river Mahanadi. Apart from that, it receives several tributaries along the course, as you can see. So Simhat River, Avdev River, Mat, and Eve River you will find here. These are some of the important left bank tributary. On the other hand, rivers such as Jom, Ong, and Te are the important right bank tributary of Mahanadi. Just when river Mahanadi enters Odisha, a dam is constructed over it. This dam is what we call as Hirakud Dam. So Hirakud Dam is the key structure, one of the most important structures, and also considered as one of the world's longest earthen dam, built somewhere in 1950s. Disputed structure I discussed, 8 barrages were constructed or built by Chhattisgarh, mainly for irrigation and power, which Odisha objects to. So if you look at now this particular map itself, you can see that in series a number of barrages were constructed. If you look here in the Samoda region, then we have Basarpur area, then Sevri and then Birauni, then Saradi, Kalma, and this is the Hirapur. This is the region where river enters the Odisha. So just before it enters Odisha, numerous barrages were constructed largely for industrial purposes in the state of Chhattisgarh. If you look at the timeline of this dispute, we can go back as early as 1950s when Hirakud Dam was built in Odisha. That time Chhattisgarh did not exist because we have united Madhya Pradesh. So there was no such formal dispute between the states of Madhya Pradesh and the state of Odisha. Then came year 2000. Chhattisgarh was carved out of Madhya Pradesh, and because of this Chhattisgarh they then began to create policies and infrastructure that would help it in rapid development, economic development. In 2016, the Odisha alleged that 8 barrages were built on the river Mahanadi in the Chhattisgarh that has reduced the amount of water flowing through the Hirakud, which is crucial for its industrial, economic, as well as hydroelectric generation activities. Not only that, it also supplies water for drinking purposes to millions of its residents. And also, it is alleged that Chhattisgarh has planned these barrages in such a way that they do not require CWC clearances. So basically, it is not. If Chhattisgarh would have created a large dam that would have basically required CWC, that is Central Water Commission clearances. So rather than building a single large dam, Chhattisgarh has built numerous small dams, and their compounding effect can be seen in the volume of water that has reduced in the state of Odisha as such. So because of this particular region, then the state of Odisha, that time it was ruled by, or we can say governed by Biju Janata Dal government. So BJD-led government then dragged the matter to Supreme Court, even though central government was trying to bring some solution, and it was a solution by discussing with both of the state. In 2018, due to the matter being referred to Supreme Court, the Supreme Court decided to set up or constitute a tribunal called as MWDT, that is Mahanadi Water Disputes Tribunal. 2025 states only, they have stated to the tribunal that they have agreed in principle to find some solution, but again they have failed to finalize any formula how water do we share. And in April 2026, an MWT issued the final warning order that agree by to make that how could you resolve a dispute or come to some amicable solution, or MWT will decide alone the verdict of this entire matter based on the merit of the case, based on the scientific and technical understanding of the case. Now, in July 2026, also most recently, Union Jal Shakti Minister personally shared talks with both of the Chief Ministers. They met in Delhi, Chief Minister of Odisha and Chief Minister of the Chhattisgarh, and the dispute is still being actively mediated a decade after it began as such. Most recently, on August 1st, the CM of Odisha called CM of Chhattisgarh, and they also discussed that they should come to some solution, final solution as far as the Mahanadi River dispute is concerned. So, based on all this development, it is quite possible that some solutions we might see coming up in the next few months. Now, the legal architecture to basically deal with all the dispute is similar. So, in case of Mahanadi River, also we know that NT 70 versus NT 56 of state versus union list. So, river, we talk about the water largely, it is a state subject. That means any state is free to make any kind of rules as far as the extraction or the use of the water is concerned. But whenever we talk about interstate river, as it passes through multiple states, it is put under the union list. So, the same constitutional basis as the interstate river dispute. Now, we know that under Article 262 and 1956 Act was created. It empowers the Parliament to provide for adjudication of interstate river dispute, and it also has enabled the constitution of Mahanadi Water Dispute Tribunal. Similarly, we have seen earlier like in Kaveri Water Dispute Tribunal or Krishna Water Dispute Tribunal. Mahanadi Water Dispute Tribunal in 2018 was set up after we have seen Odisha under the BJD went to the Supreme Court with a petition against the barrages being constructed by Chhattisgarh over the Upper Mahanadi, shared by retired Supreme Court judge. Currently, Justice Beya Trivedi is chairing this MWD, and its tenure has been extended multiple times, even though it was set up in 2018, somewhere 8 years back, because tribunal has not been able to provide any final binding sharing agreement or final binding award as far as the river is concerned. Now, no sharing agreement exists. That also makes it complex and complicated task how to deal with this issue, because in many other rivers of peninsular India or the southern India, a water sharing right exists. That makes it relatively easier. So, as with Godavari, there is no formal Chhattisgarh water sharing agreement. Chhattisgarh maintains its uses only its own share because of it being the upper riparian state as such. Now, if you look at the tribunal running out of patience, that is something also MWD has stated, that both states have been warned that failing to finalize the settlement formula by 2nd May 2026, that obviously they have failed. Tribunal would proceed to decide the matter on its own merit as such. But again, here the tribunal itself is not able to provide some award. It is still waiting for both states to come to some solution. Central Water Commission also has to play a role here, but it has been bypassed as alleged by Odisha because of the smaller scale project in the form of barrages constructed by the state of Chhattisgarh. Under the Central Water Commission chairman itself in 2026, there was decided to create a technical committee, constitute a technical committee. The purpose or objective of this technical committee will be to understand the amount of water flowing between both of the state in the dry season, in the rainy season, how water volume changes, what is going to be the impact of these barrages or the projects in the overall availability of water volume in the lower riparian states such as Odisha, and it was tasked to report to tribunal within 3 months based on its report. Now, why it is different? It is different in this case. We have discussed till now about several of the river dispute. It is the only case where the tribunal we talk about is only other four dispute in the series where the tribunal itself has explicitly threatened to stop waiting for the states to agree as it will provide award in the coming days as such. Now also let us try to understand what is the position of both of the states, that is Odisha and Chhattisgarh. So Odisha, as you have seen, it completely does not agree that Chhattisgarh has any right to construct these 8 upstream barrages, especially when it is being used in the non-monsoon month when the water volume is very less in the river Mahanadi. It also alleged that it has skipped the mandatory CWC clearances because the scale of the barrage 1450 district of Odisha is going to be severely impacted due to this barrage, such as the amount of water flowing through Hirakud Dam would be reduced, and it wanted a formal tribunal adjudicated formula rather than informal assurances from the central government or even from the government of Chhattisgarh. Chhattisgarh, on the other hand, it clearly rejects any of the point mentioned here by Odisha. It says that Chhattisgarh is upper riparian state and it uses only its own legitimate share which is required for irrigation and regional development. Chhattisgarh says that it was carved out from Madhya Pradesh. It has been a kind of low developing state as such. The economic development, the industrial development has been lagging behind compared to other states. That's why it has its right to use the resources for the welfare of its own people, and that's why it denied any kind of violating any binding rule, because first of all it says that there is no binding rule exists. There is no proper water sharing framework agreement as such that Chhattisgarh has not adhered to. That's why it is not at fault. And at the same time, it says that the allegation of Odisha that the amount of water flowing through the Hirakud Dam has reduced. It has reduced because of the lower amount of rainfall, and it also changes because of the variability in monsoon, not just because the projects constructed by Chhattisgarh on the river Mahanadi. So that's how it explains the fluctuation of flow in the region of Odisha as such. And as a newer, less developed state formed in 2000s, it asserts its own legitimate development needs, and that's how it justifies the use of water. Now, if you try to understand that where things stand in 2026, so we have seen 2nd May 2026, tribunal deadline already had passed. No final agreement was reached between both of the states. 30th of July 2026, Center brokered CM talks occurred in Delhi, where the Union Jal Shakti Minister met with the CM of Odisha as well as CM of Chhattisgarh, and 3 months time was given to the technical committee, set up under the Central Water Commission, to submit its report to the tribunal based on which decision can be taken. Now, deadline has passed, dispute is still open, and both states have told the Supreme Court, however, that they prefer resolving this through the mutual consultation rather than drag this matter in the court and fighting it all. So, this also is because of the mediation by central government as such. Expanded CWC Technical Committee held its first meeting on 29 July to resume the consultations, and the committee must report to the tribunal within 3 months, as we have seen. So, based on the speed at which this matter is being discussed at the interstate level or between central state level or even the intervention of tribunal, as you can say, many of the experts argue, they believe that by Diwali 2026, maybe Mahanadi River dispute can be finally resolved and solved. What mechanism exists to settle the dispute? So first of all, the final MWD award will go a long way in ensuring that both states understand to what extent their right exists over the sharing of river water from Mahanadi. In principle, deals are still unfinalized. Complete the CWC report. Technical Committee's 3-month report would supply the hydrological baseline for credible award, because any award, even if it is decided by Mahanadi Water Dispute Tribunal, would be based on a solid scientific and technical evidences. It cannot be based on the hearsay or the claims made by both states that can be not verified, that's unverified in nature. So CWC report is very important in this case. Real-time gauge monitoring was suggested somewhere back in 2016 itself. So where the river enters where Mahanadi River enters the state of Odisha, a trusted CWC gauge station can be created. that would replace the dwelling claims with shared data. That gate itself will say that whether the amount of water flowing to Mahanadi in Odisha has really reduced. If it has reduced, it is due to because of the barrage effect, or it is due to the variability of monsoon and all. That would give credibility to the claims of both states as such. And most importantly, India has adopted the model of cooperative federalism, where the disputes, where you talk about any kind of non-agreements have to be resolved in an amicable manner by deliberations and discussion and dialogue and such. The such sustained center-brokered CM level talks as in July 2026 has kept both states negotiating rather than only litigating. So it is also a good way. Stronger clearance compliance, reviewing cumulative downstream impact of new barrages, not just each project against an individual threshold. So we have seen that 8 barrages were constructed by Chhattisgarh. So rather than looking at the effect of each barrage, we should look at the compounding and cumulative effect that it produces on the downstream flow of river Mahanadi, and then only we can verify that whether the allegation made by the state of Odisha stands true or not. Depoliticizing dispute, that is the biggest step that should take, because when we talk about the sharing of river water and talk about the infrastructure projects on the river, any such decision affect the life of millions of people who are dependent upon it for the irrigation demand, who are dependent upon it for the drinking water demand, even for the industries and the idle stations who depend on the flow of this river water. So we should insulate them from the any kind of domestic or state-based political point scoring, which is seen repeatedly in Odisha's own state politics also. So depoliticizing this river dispute and then agreeing to something which will benefit and will have general welfare for every people of the region is desirable solution. Essentially, in the last, we can say the river dispute of Mahanadi still remains unresolved question, and a decade of dialogue has went on either with the earlier governments or the present government, but still no final formula for sharing of river water is to be seen as such. Overall, you can say the tribunal's patience seems to be wearing thin, as it has stated in its final warning to the both of the state. Center now also have personally involved itself more strongly. Mediation is going on along with the Union Jal Shakti Minister and his involvement. So 2026 may actually be the year when Odisha and Chhattisgarh finally get a binding answer one way or another. So that's how we are expecting and hopeful that by Diwali 2026 some sort of solution will be reached. That's all about the Mahanadi River Water Dispute. In next video we'll discuss about the Ravi Vyas dispute. That's all of this video. Thank you very much.